The morning coffee was still steaming in Director Walsh's cup when the first alien transmission arrived at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station in Australia. 23 years of searching the cosmos for signs of intelligent life had finally yielded results, but not the friendly greeting humanity had hoped for. The message was brief, cold, and delivered in perfect English that somehow felt wrong in its mechanical precision. Walsh set down his cup and read the decoded message again, hoping he had misunderstood something crucial. The galactic hegemony demanded Earth's immediate and unconditional surrender within 72 hours. Humanity would become a vassal species, providing 60% of all resources as tribute to their new masters. Refusal would result in what they called planetary cleansing, complete orbital bombardment, until nothing remained but molten rock and ash. The transmission included detailed scans of Earth's surface, population centers, and military installations. These aliens had been watching humanity for decades, cataloging their strengths and weaknesses with clinical detachment. They knew about nuclear weapons, conventional armies, and defensive capabilities. What they didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this day since the first radio telescopes detected organized signals from deep space. President Hayes received the emergency briefing in the White House Situation Room at 3 a.m. Military advisors, scientists, and intelligence chiefs gathered around the polished table as Walsh presented the ultimatum. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity faced extinction or slavery, and they had less than 3 days to choose. How large is their fleet? General Morrison asked, studying the tactical data. 800 ships, Walsh replied. Each one the size of an aircraft carrier, armed with weapons that could crack continents. They're positioning themselves at the edge of our solar system, just beyond Jupiter's orbit. The president leaned back in his chair, his face grave but determined. What are our options? Dr. Reed from the Department of Advanced Research stepped forward. Her clearance level was so high that most people in the room didn't know she existed until that moment. Sir, we have capabilities that aren't listed in any public military inventory. Project Deep Shield has been operational for 15 years, and Project Mirror's Edge was completed last month. The room stirred with confusion. Even the Joint Chiefs looked puzzled. Reed continued, When we first detected organized alien communications in 2001, certain decisions were made. Resources were redirected, technologies were developed, and preparations were put in place for exactly this scenario. She activated a holographic display that showed Earth surrounded by a network of satellites, underwater installations, and mountain facilities that officially didn't exist. We've been building a defense grid based on principles that most of our own scientists would call impossible. Quantum field manipulation, dimensional folding, gravitational control systems. Admiral Thompson frowned. That sounds like science fiction. So did nuclear weapons until we built them, Reed replied. So did computers, satellites, and the internet. Humanity has a remarkable ability to turn impossible dreams into devastating realities when survival is at stake. The president studied the holographic display. Thin lines connected installations across the globe, forming a web of defensive positions that spanned continents and oceans. How effective will these systems be against alien technology? Reed's expression remained neutral. Unknown, sir. We've never tested them against actual targets. But the theoretical models suggest that anyone attempting to attack Earth will face significant challenges. Over the next 12 hours, emergency protocols activated worldwide. Military bases shed their peacetime appearances as hidden systems powered up for the first time. Civilian populations noticed strange atmospheric phenomena, aurora-like lights in daylight hours, unusual electromagnetic readings that made electronics behave erratically, and a subtle vibration in the ground that seismologists couldn't explain. The alien fleet maintained its position beyond Jupiter, broadcasting regular updates of their ultimatum. Their messages grew increasingly impatient as the deadline approached. They had performed this ritual of intimidation on countless worlds, and the pattern was always the same. Initial defiance would crumble into desperate negotiations, followed by unconditional surrender, but Earth's response was different. Instead of panic or desperate diplomatic overtures, humanity seemed to be preparing for something. Deep space. Sensors detected massive energy buildups across the planet's surface. Ancient mountains revealed themselves as enormous installations. Ocean floors concealed weapon systems that drew power from the planet's core itself. Director Walsh sat in the Global Defense Command Center buried 3 miles beneath Colorado's mountains. Banks of monitors showed the alien fleet's position. Earth's defensive systems coming online and global communication networks coordinating responses across all time zones. The countdown timer on the main screen showed 18 hours remaining. "Sir," Lieutenant Ross reported from his console, "we're receiving communications from installations that aren't supposed to exist. Facility 7 reports full operational status. Deep Blue acknowledges ready state. Mirror's Edge confirms all systems are online and targeting solutions are locked," Walsh nodded grimly. He had spent his entire career preparing for conventional threats, enemy nations, terrorist organizations, natural disasters. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for defending Earth against alien conquest, but the systems around him hummed with confidence that someone had been planning for exactly this scenario. The president's final address to the world was broadcast from the Oval Office at exactly 60 hours after the ultimatum's arrival. His words were calm and measured, but they carried the weight of humanity's collective determination. "My fellow citizens of Earth, we face a choice between freedom and slavery. These aliens believe we are weak because we are young. They see our wars, our divisions, our struggles, and assume we cannot stand united against a common threat. They are about to learn how wrong they are." The transmission to the galactic hegemony was brief and delivered in the same mechanical tone they had used. "We have considered your offer and declined to accept your terms. Earth remains free. If you wish to challenge our sovereignty, we invite you to try." Across the alien fleet, commanders read the response with disbelief. No species had ever rejected the hegemony's ultimatum. Their databases contained records of 12,000 civilizations that had faced this choice, and all had eventually submitted to avoid annihilation. The humans' defiance was unprecedented and would require an immediate demonstration of the consequences of resistance. Admiral Fane ordered his fleet to assume bombardment formation above Earth's atmosphere. The show of force would break whatever foolish courage the humans thought they possessed. Soon they would be begging for the mercy of vassalage, grateful for any alternative to extinction. But as the alien ships moved into position, something strange began to happen in the space around Earth. Reality itself seemed to shimmer and shift, as if the planet was surrounded by invisible machinery of impossible scale and complexity. The Alien War Council convened aboard the flagship Dominion's Will as their fleet moved through Earth's outer solar system. Admiral Fane studied the tactical displays while his subordinates reported the latest intelligence on human defensive capabilities. What they saw confused them more than it concerned them. "The humans are activating installations we didn't know existed," Commander Vale reported. "Our long-range scans show massive energy signatures emerging from previously undetected facilities. Some appear to be built inside mountains, others are on the ocean floor." Thane dismissed the concern with a wave. "Desperation makes all species resourceful. They're probably reviewing hidden nuclear arsenals or conventional weapon stockpiles. Nothing that will matter once we begin orbital bombardment." But the energy readings troubled the fleet's scientists. Dr. Neth, the hegemony's leading expert on primitive warfare, studied the sensor data with growing unease. "Admiral, these signatures don't match any known technology. The power outputs are beyond what their civilization should be capable of generating." "Impossible," Fane replied. "We've monitored their development for decades. They barely mastered nuclear fusion and still use chemical rockets for space travel. Whatever they're powering up will be ineffective against our shields." On Earth, the 72-hour countdown had become a symphony of preparation unlike anything in human history. Every nation put aside their differences as the planet united against a common threat. Resources that had been tied up in petty conflicts were redirected toward the global defense network that few people knew existed. "Commander," Blake stood in the primary control room of Deep Shield Station, watching status reports flow in from installations across the globe. The mountain facility had been disguised as a geological research station for 20 years, but its true purpose was finally being revealed. Quantum field generators the size of city blocks hummed to life, drawing power from experimental reactors that operated on principles most physicists wouldn't discover for another century. Mirror's Edge is reporting full synchronization, reported Technician Foster from her station. All gravitational control nodes are online and responding to central command. Dimensional fold generators are stable and ready for deployment. Blake nodded as he watched the tactical display update. 800 alien ships approached Earth in perfect formation, their confidence evident in their leisurely pace. They moved like predators who had never encountered effective resistance, secure in their overwhelming technological superiority. What they couldn't see was the web of defensive systems that surrounded Earth like an invisible shell, satellites. That looked like communication relays were actually quantum field manipulators. Underwater installations disguised as research stations controlled gravitational anomaly generators. Deep space monitoring posts that publicly searched for radio signals were secretly tracking every ship in the approaching fleet. The transformation was happening all over the planet. In the Nevada desert, what appeared to be solar panel farms revealed themselves as massive energy collection arrays feeding power to weapon systems buried beneath the sand. Arctic research stations shed their scientific facades and emerged as control nodes for defensive networks that spanned continents. Dr. Reed monitored the planet's changing electromagnetic signature from her facility beneath the Rockies. 23. Years of secret research and development were finally being activated. Technologies that had been theoretical when the first alien signals were detected had become operational realities. The field generators are responding beautifully, she reported to Director Walsh through encrypted channels. We're seeing perfect harmonic resonance across all continental arrays. The enemy won't be able to detect our true capabilities until they're already committed to attack. Walsh studied the global status board as installation after installation, reported Ready Status. Names that existed in no public record confirm their operational readiness. Project Deep Shield, Mirror's Edge, Quantum Gate, Gravitational Hammer, and dozens of other programs that had consumed trillions of dollars and employed the brightest minds of a generation. How did we build all this without anyone noticing? He asked Reed during a brief private moment. Reed smiled grimly. People see what they expect to see. Every major government participated, but the work was compartmentalized. Scientists thought they were working on theoretical research. Engineers believed they were building experimental prototypes. Construction crews built facilities they thought were for earthquake monitoring or deep space communications. And it all actually works? We're about to find out. Above Earth's atmosphere, the alien fleet began their final approach. Admiral Thane felt the familiar satisfaction of another inevitable victory. His ships had destroyed civilizations that spanned multiple star systems. These humans, confined to a single world, would fall even more easily than most. Begin the intimidation broadcast, he ordered. Standard frequency, full spectrum transmission. Let them see what's coming. The message that reached Earth was typical hegemony doctrine. Images of previous conquered worlds filled every screen and communication device on the planet. Cities turned to glass by orbital bombardment. Populations fleeing in terror before being vaporized by quantum disruptors. The complete annihilation of species that had dared to resist, but instead of the expected panic, Earth's response was silence. No desperate diplomatic overtures, no offers of negotiated surrender. No signs of the social collapse that usually preceded total submission. The planet continued its mysterious preparations as if the approaching fleet was merely an inconvenience. Sir, Commander Vale reported uneasily, we're detecting dimensional distortions around the target planet. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. Thane studied the sensor displays with growing irritation. Space around Earth seemed to be bending in ways that violated known physics. Energy patterns flowed between invisible installations in perfect synchronization. The planet was surrounded by something that their most advanced sensors couldn't properly identify. Analysis? He demanded. Dr. Neth consulted her instruments with obvious confusion. Unknown, Admiral. The distortions appear to be artificial, but the technology required would be far beyond anything a pre-contact civilization should possess. It's as if they're manipulating the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Impossible, Thane repeated, but his voice carried less certainty than before. The final hour of the ultimatum arrived with Earth still defiant. No surrender transmission, no white flags. No signs of the capitulation that had always marked the end of hegemony ultimatums. Instead, the mysterious energy patterns around the planet intensified, creating visual distortions that made their targeting systems struggle to maintain locks. Admiral Thane made his decision. All ships assume bombardment formation. Target major population centers and military installations. We'll begin with a demonstration that will break their spirit, then accept their surrender. But as his fleet moved into attack position, the space around Earth began to change in ways that defied all their experience and understanding. Reality itself seemed to be responding to human will, bending and shifting according to plans that no hegemony strategist could have anticipated. The war was about to begin, and neither side truly understood what they were about to unleash. The attack began at exactly 1400 hours Greenwich Mean Time with the sound of 800 alien warships firing simultaneously. From Earth's surface, the bombardment looked like a second sun appearing in the afternoon sky as quantum disruptors and plasma cannons unleashed their fury upon the planet below. Admiral Thane watched from his command bridge as enough energy to shatter continents streaked toward the blue world that had dared to defy the hegemony, but the planetary bombardment never reached its target. Every beam, every missile, every quantum pulse struck what appeared to be empty space 50 kilometers above Earth's atmosphere and simply stopped. The energy hung frozen in space for one impossible moment, glowing like trapped lightning, before something seized control of it and began to redirect it back toward its source. What the hell is happening? Thane demanded as his tactical displays showed impossible readings. The humans' counterattack wasn't coming from visible ships or orbital platforms. It was coming from the planet itself, as if the entire world had become a weapon. Lieutenant Ross monitored the engagement from his station 3 miles beneath Colorado's mountains. Sir, enemy bombardment has been completely neutralized, he reported to Commander Blake. All incoming energy is being absorbed and redirected through the dimensional fold network. Mirror's Edge is functioning perfectly. Blake watched the tactical display as Earth's response began. What the aliens had intended as a demonstration of overwhelming force was being turned into a demonstration of human ingenuity. Their own weapons, amplified and precisely controlled, were being fed back to them with interest. The first alien ship died within 30 seconds of opening fire. The destroyer Righteous Fury found its shields collapsing as its own quantum disruptors struck it from impossible angles. The energy that should have been blasting Earth cities was instead tearing through its hull with surgical precision. Dr. Reed observed the battle from her control station as systems she had spent decades designing performed flawlessly under combat conditions. Gravitational control nodes are responding perfectly, she reported. We're maintaining stable dimensional folds while channeling enemy fire through quantum mirrors. The amplification effect is exceeding our best theoretical models. Across the alien fleet, panic began to spread as ship after ship found itself under attack by its own weapons. Admiral Thane ordered evasive maneuvers, but something was holding his fleet in place. Space around the battle zone had become thick and sticky, like flying through invisible honey that grew stronger with every passing second. Admiral, Commander Vale's voice carried barely controlled terror, we're trapped in some kind of gravitational anomaly. Our engines are running at full power, but we can't break free. It's as if space itself is fighting against us. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were demonstrating control over forces that the hegemony didn't know existed. Ships, that tried to retreat found their faster-than-light drives useless against localized space-time distortions. Vessels that attempted to maneuver discovered that up and down had become meaningless concepts as gravitational fields shifted and twisted around them. Captain Torres reported from the lunar observation post as she watched the engagement through the most powerful telescopes humanity had ever built. "The enemy fleet is completely contained within our dimensional cage," she transmitted to Earth Command. "They can't escape, they can't fight effectively, and their own weapons are being used to destroy them." The hegemony's most advanced warships found themselves helpless against forces they couldn't understand. Quantum shields designed to deflect planet-killing weapons collapsed under precise gravitational pressures. Hull plating that could withstand the heat of stellar cores was torn apart by their own redirected energy beams. Admiral Thane tried desperately to regain control of the situation. "All ships, concentrate fire on the source of these anomalies. Target the planet's surface installations." But there were no visible installations to target. Earth's defensive systems existed in folded dimensions that occupied the same space as reality while remaining completely undetectable. The planet appeared defenseless to their sensors while simultaneously demonstrating power that rewrote the laws of warfare. "Sir," Dr. Neth's voice shook with disbelief, "the humans are manipulating fundamental forces. They're controlling gravity, bending space-time, and redirecting energy through dimensions we can't even detect. This isn't advanced technology. This is something completely beyond our understanding." Within 6 minutes of the attack's beginning, half the hegemony fleet was either destroyed or disabled. Ships that had conquered star systems found themselves slowly crushed by their own. Artificial gravity systems turned against them. Weapons that had reduced civilizations to ash were being controlled with precision that made them surgical instruments in human hands. Commander Blake received status reports from installations that officially didn't exist. Deep shield reports. 100% effectiveness. Mira's Edge is operating within normal parameters. Quantum gate arrays are stable and ready for Phase 2 if needed. "Phase 2? Blake asked. Dr. Reed's expression was grim. "If necessary, we can extend our dimensional control beyond the local area. These aliens came here believing they were the predators. They need to understand that Earth is under the protection of something they can't fight or comprehend." The remaining alien ships tried every tactic in their arsenal. They fired at maximum range, attempted coordinated strikes from multiple angles, and even tried to ram the invisible barriers that contained them. Nothing worked. Every action they took only demonstrated their complete helplessness against forces that operated according to rules they didn't know existed. 10 minutes into the battle, Admiral Thane finally understood what was happening. The humans hadn't just defended against the hegemony's attack. They had been expecting it, preparing for it, and were now using it as an opportunity to demonstrate capabilities that would terrify every species in the galaxy. "Send a surrender signal," he ordered. "All ships, cease fire and transmit immediate unconditional surrender." But it was too late for surrender. The engagement had become a teaching moment, and Earth intended to ensure the lesson was thoroughly learned. The destruction continued with mechanical precision as human-controlled forces methodically eliminated every ship that had dared to threaten their world. Lieutenant Ross watched his chronometer as the final enemy vessel was reduced to drifting. "Debris. Sir, all hostile contacts have been neutralized. Total engagement time, 14 minutes and 37 seconds. The battle was over almost before it had begun. 800 of the hegemony's most advanced warships had been destroyed by their own weapons, controlled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Not a single human life had been lost, and Earth's surface remained completely untouched, but the real war was just beginning. News of the 14-minute engagement would spread across the galaxy at the speed of light, carrying with it a message that would shatter the foundations of galactic civilization. Humanity had announced its presence to the cosmos, and the announcement had been written in the wreckage of those who thought they could conquer Earth. The age of the galactic hegemony was ending, and something unprecedented was about to take its place. The debris field that had once been the galactic hegemony's third fleet drifted silently in Earth's orbit. each piece of wreckage telling the story of the most decisive military defeat in recorded galactic history. Emergency rescue ships arrived from across the solar system to search for survivors, but what they found among the twisted metal and shattered hulls was more disturbing than the simple carnage of war. Captain Foster guided her rescue vessel Phoenix through the maze of destroyed alien technology, her sensors scanning for life signs among the wreckage. The few survivors they recovered were in a state of shock that went beyond normal battle trauma. These were veteran warriors who had conquered hundreds of worlds, but their expressions carried a terror that spoke of witnessing something that broke their understanding of reality itself. "They keep talking about weapons that shouldn't exist," reported Medical Officer Davis as he treated an alien survivor. "This one claims that humans fought with the power of gods, that we bent space and time to our will. He says his people's databases contain no record of any species developing such capabilities so quickly." The rescued aliens spoke in hushed, broken sentences about the final moments of their fleet. They described watching their own weapons turn against them with impossible precision, feeling their ships caught in gravitational fields that appeared from nowhere, and seeing space itself twist and bend around Earth like reality was just another tool in humanity's arsenal. Director Walsh stood in the Global Defense Command Center, reading reports from interrogations of the surviving enemy personnel. Their stories were consistent and disturbing. The galactic hegemony had ruled for 3,000 years through superior technology and overwhelming force, but Earth had demonstrated capabilities that made their most advanced weapons look like primitive tools. "How long do we have before the rest of the galaxy learns what happened here?" President Hayes asked during an emergency briefing. "The engagement was observed by long-range sensors across multiple star systems," Admiral Thompson replied. "Word is already spreading through their communication networks. Every species in hegemony space will know about Earth's victory within a matter of days." Dr. Reed analyzed the quantum signatures left behind by their defensive systems. The battle had revealed more about human capabilities than she would have preferred, but the demonstration had been necessary. "The energy patterns we used will be studied by every major civilization in the galaxy. They'll try to understand how we manipulated fundamental forces, but their science isn't advanced enough to comprehend what they observed." Earth's message to the galaxy was broadcast on every known frequency, transmitted through communication networks that spanned thousands of light years. Director Walsh's voice carried across the stars with a calm authority that somehow made his words more terrifying than any threat could have been. "People of the galaxy," the transmission began, "today you witnessed the end of an age. For 3 millennia, the galactic hegemony has ruled through fear and force, believing that might alone grants the right to govern others. That age is over." The message continued with clinical precision. "Humanity offers the galaxy a simple choice. We can coexist in peace with respect for the sovereignty of all species, or you can continue the old ways and face the consequences. What you witnessed today was a demonstration of restraint. We could have destroyed every ship in their fleet in seconds rather than minutes. That mercy exists only as long as peace is maintained." Across 12,000 star systems, the message was received with emotions ranging from hope to absolute terror. Species that had suffered under hegemony rule began to whisper of liberation, while others feared that humanity might simply replace one tyrant with another. But all understood that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in the span of 14 minutes. On the hegemony capital world of Prime Dominion, the Council of Ruling Species convened an emergency session. For the first time in their history, they faced a threat they couldn't defeat through conventional means. The humans had demonstrated technological capabilities that should have been impossible for a species confined to a single world. "How did they develop such advanced systems so quickly?" demanded Counselor Rex, his forearms gesticulating in agitation. "Our intelligence reports showed a primitive civilization barely capable of interplanetary travel. Now they wield forces that can manipulate spacetime itself." The hegemony's chief scientist, Dr. Vix, studied the sensor recordings of Earth's defensive demonstration. The energy signatures suggest they've been developing these technologies for decades, possibly since they first detected our presence. But the theoretical knowledge required should have taken centuries to accumulate. Unless, another counselor suggested quietly, they didn't need to develop it. Perhaps they already possessed the knowledge and were simply waiting for the right moment to reveal it. The implications of that possibility sent ripples of fear through the council chambers. If humanity had been hiding such capabilities for generations, what else might they be concealing? Were there other species in the galaxy that possessed similar hidden strengths? Had the hegemony's reign of terror been built on a foundation of ignorance about the true capabilities of those they oppressed? Meanwhile, across hegemony space, the first rebellions began. On worlds that had been subjugated for centuries, populations looked up at their oppressors with new hope. If the mighty hegemony fleet could be destroyed in 14 minutes by a previously unknown species, perhaps their rule wasn't as unshakable as it had seemed. The planet Navarra declared its independence within hours of receiving news of the battle. Their message to the hegemony was brief and final: "We are no longer your subjects. Any attempt to reassert control will be met with resistance." Similar declarations followed from dozens of worlds as the news spread. Captain Torres monitored these developments from her lunar observation post, watching as the carefully maintained order of galactic civilization began to unravel. "Sir, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout hegemony space. It looks like they're recalling forces from the frontier to protect their core worlds." "Good," Commander Blake replied. "The longer they spend worrying about rebellion, the less time they have to plan another attack on Earth." But the military implications were only part of the story. Earth's demonstration had revealed something that challenged the fundamental assumptions of galactic civilization. For 3,000 years, technological advancement had been a gradual process measured in centuries. Species developed slowly, their capabilities growing in predictable patterns that the hegemony could monitor and counter. Humanity had shattered that pattern. In less than a century since developing radio technology, they had achieved mastery over forces that the galaxy's oldest civilizations barely understood. This suggested either unprecedented genius or access to knowledge sources that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Reed found herself at the center of intense scientific interest as researchers across the galaxy tried to understand humanity's rapid advancement. "They're asking the right questions," she admitted to Director Walsh. "How did we develop dimensional folding technology without first mastering faster-than-light travel? How did we achieve gravitational control without centuries of theoretical research? How did we build weapons that operate on principles their most advanced scientists consider impossible?" "And what are we telling them?" Walsh asked. "The truth," Reed replied with a slight smile. "Human ingenuity, necessity driving innovation, and the remarkable ability of our species to achieve impossible things when survival is at stake. They're free to believe that explanation or not." As news of the 14-minute war continued to spread, ancient civilizations that had hidden in the galaxy's dark corners began to emerge from exile. Species that had escaped hegemony conquest by retreating to isolated star systems sent cautious messages of contact to Earth. They wanted to know if humanity truly intended to create a new order, or simply replace the old tyranny with a human version. The galaxy was watching Earth with a mixture of hope and fear, waiting to see what the species that had destroyed the hegemony's greatest fleet would do with their newfound power. The age of conquest was ending, but what would replace it remained uncertain. All that was clear was that humanity had announced itself to the cosmos, and the announcement had been written in the wreckage of those who thought they could enslave Earth. 6 months after the 14-minute war, the galactic hegemony's 3,000-year empire existed only in history books. What had taken millennia to build had collapsed in weeks as member species abandoned their allegiances and former subjects declared independence across the galaxy. The rebellion that began with humanity's demonstration of power had become an unstoppable wave of liberation that swept away the old order entirely. Ambassador David Wilson stood before the newly formed Galactic Congress on the neutral world of Haven, representing humanity in its first official diplomatic contact with the wider cosmic community. The massive assembly hall contained representatives from over 400 species, some arriving in environmental suits, others appearing as holographic projections from distant worlds, all united by the knowledge that everything had changed. The faces looking back at him showed the full spectrum of galactic opinion about Earth's emergence as a power. Some species regarded humanity with gratitude for ending their oppression, others with suspicion about what kind of rulers humans might become, and still others with barely concealed terror at the forces they had witnessed. All of them wanted answers about humanity's intentions. "We did not seek to become the galaxy's policeman," Wilson addressed the assembly, his words translated simultaneously into thousands of languages and communication methods. "We sought only to protect our world and our people from conquest. But we cannot ignore the consequences of our actions or the responsibilities that come with the power we have revealed." The proposal he presented was elegant in its simplicity. Earth would guarantee the sovereignty of all species and protect them from conquest or oppression, but in return the galaxy would adopt principles of peaceful coexistence and mutual respect. No more tributary systems, no more slave worlds. More extermination of entire species for convenience or resources. "How can we trust that humanity won't simply replace the hegemony as our new masters?" asked Representative Torres of the Centauri Alliance. Voicing the question that haunted many in the assembly, Wilson's response was measured and direct. "Because we don't want to rule you. We want to return to our own world and continue our own development without interference. Our only interest in galactic affairs is ensuring that no species faces the same threat we did." To prove their point, humanity began demonstrating their new philosophy through actions rather than words. Trade routes that had been monopolized by the hegemony open to all species, with Earth providing protection for merchant vessels traveling between previously hostile systems. Technologies that had been hoarded by the ruling class began spreading freely as humanity shared innovations in medicine, agriculture, and sustainable energy. The transformation was swift and comprehensive. Worlds that had been strip-mined by hegemony resource extractors received aid packages that helped them rebuild their ecosystems. Populations that had been enslaved found themselves not only free but protected by defensive systems that seemed to appear wherever they were threatened. Director Walsh monitored these developments from Earth's Global Defense Command Center, watching as humanity's protective influence spread across the galaxy. "Are we overextending ourselves?" he asked Dr. Reed during one of their regular briefings. Reed studied the displays showing Earth's defensive network extending through dimensional folds that spanned thousands of light years. "Not overextending," she replied. "Expanding. The same principles that protected Earth can be applied anywhere we choose to establish coverage. Distance becomes meaningless when you can manipulate spacetime itself." The technology behind humanity's sudden emergence as a galactic power remained mysterious even to those who witnessed its effects daily. Ships belonging to pirates and warlords simply disappeared when they threatened peaceful traders. Slave markets closed overnight as their operators were found unconscious with no memory of their criminal activities. Weapons of mass destruction deactivated themselves when aimed at civilian populations. "How are they doing it?" demanded former hegemony Admiral Rex during a clandestine meeting of displaced military leaders. "Our sensors can't detect their ships. Our intelligence networks can't locate their installations, and our best scientists can't explain their technology." The answer remained as elusive as ever. Humanity's representatives spoke vaguely of human ingenuity and breakthrough discoveries, but the specific details of their capabilities stayed classified at levels that no external intelligence service could penetrate. What the galaxy did know was that Earth's protection was both absolute and invisible, appearing wherever it was needed without warning or visible deployment. On the former hegemony capital world of Prime Dominion, the transition to the New Order was particularly dramatic. The Council of Ruling Species had been dissolved, its members either fleeing to distant star systems or accepting exile to primitive worlds, where they could cause no further harm. In their place, a coalition of former subject species established a democratic government based on principles of equality and self-determination. Captain Foster, now commanding the deep space exploration vessel New Horizons, reported from the frontier regions where hegemony authority had completely collapsed. "The outer systems are stabilizing faster than anyone expected," she transmitted to Earth Command. "Wherever conflicts arise, they seem to resolve themselves peacefully. Local populations report experiencing sudden clarity about the benefits of cooperation over conquest." The subtle influence of humanity's guardianship extended far beyond military protection. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves negotiating peaceful settlements to ancient disputes. Warlords who had terrorized entire sectors experienced unexpected changes of heart and began seeking legitimate occupations. Pirates discovered that their weapons simply wouldn't function when aimed at innocent targets. Dr. Reed's research teams worked continuously to understand the full implications of the systems they had activated. "We're not just protecting individual worlds anymore," she reported to the Global Defense Council. "We're somehow influencing the fundamental nature of conflict across galactic civilization. Aggression itself is becoming difficult to sustain in regions under our protection." The mechanism remained unclear, but the results were undeniable. Violence was decreasing galaxy-wide at rates that defied statistical models. Wars that had raged for decades ended in negotiated settlements. Species that had never cooperated began forming beneficial trade relationships. The galaxy was becoming peaceful, not through conquest, but through some form of influence that promoted cooperation over conflict. 1 year after the 14-minute war, Ambassador Wilson returned to the Galactic Congress to deliver humanity's first annual report on the state of galactic civilization. The statistics he presented would have been impossible to believe just months earlier. "Interspecies conflicts have decreased by 92%, he announced to the Assembly. "Trade between previously hostile systems has increased by 400%. The number of species participating in peaceful cooperation has grown from 12 under hegemony rule to over 800 in the new galactic community. The transformation extended beyond mere statistics. Ancient grudges that had fueled generations of warfare simply faded away as species discovered they had more to gain through cooperation than conquest. Scientific knowledge began flowing freely between civilizations, accelerating technological development across the galaxy at unprecedented rates. But questions remained about humanity's true nature and capabilities. Species across the galaxy developed theories about Earth's mysterious guardians, ranging from scientific speculation about advanced dimensional technology to spiritual beliefs about humanity as cosmic peacekeepers. The truth remained elusive, carefully guarded by a species that seemed content to let others draw their own conclusions. Lieutenant Ross, now promoted to Director of Galactic Monitoring, observed these developments from his upgraded facility beneath Colorado. "Sir, we're receiving formal requests for membership in what they're calling the Terran Protection Zone," he reported to Commander Blake. 17 more systems want to officially request our guardianship." Blake studied the applications with mixed feelings. Each request represented species that trusted humanity enough to place their security in human hands, but it also meant expanding Earth's responsibilities across an ever-growing portion of the galaxy. "What does Dr. Reed say about our capacity to protect additional systems?" "She believes we can extend protection galaxy-wide if necessary," Ross replied. "The dimensional network scales exponentially. Every new node makes the entire system stronger and more capable." The implications were staggering. Humanity had developed not just defensive technology, but what appeared to be a form of galactic governance that operated through influence rather than control. Species under Earth's protection found themselves naturally inclined toward peaceful solutions, but they retained complete autonomy over their internal affairs. As the second anniversary of the 14-minute war approached, the galaxy prepared to observe what had become known as Liberation Day across thousands of worlds. Species that had lived under hegemony oppression gathered to commemorate the moment when everything changed. The celebration was not just about human victory, but about the birth of a new age of freedom. President Hayes, now in her second term and widely regarded as the leader who had guided humanity through its emergence as a galactic power, addressed the combined assembly through holographic transmission. 2 years ago, Earth faced a choice between freedom and slavery. We chose freedom not just for ourselves, but for every species capable of peaceful coexistence. That choice has given birth to a galaxy where cooperation replaces conquest, where knowledge flows freely between civilizations, and where no species need fear extinction at the hands of another. The mystery of humanity's capabilities continued to intrigue galactic scholars, but most species had stopped questioning the mechanisms behind Earth's protection. What mattered was that it worked, that the galaxy was more peaceful and prosperous than it had been in recorded history, and that the age of conquest had truly ended. Dr. Reed, now elderly, but still leading humanity's most advanced research programs, reflected on what they had accomplished. The systems she had helped design 2 decades earlier had evolved far beyond their original purpose. They no longer just defended Earth, but actively promoted peace and cooperation across the galaxy. Are we changing them, or are they changing themselves? She wondered aloud during a private conversation with Director Walsh. Does it matter? Walsh replied. The galaxy is becoming what it always had the potential to be. We just removed the obstacles that prevented the potential from being realized. As the celebrations continued across the galaxy, humanity quietly maintained its watch. Deep space sensors monitored the edges of known space for new threats. Dimensional control systems stood ready to extend protection to any species that needed it. The networks that had saved Earth now safeguarded an entire galactic civilization. The age of the galactic hegemony was history, but the age of peace was just beginning. Humanity had proven that overwhelming force was not the only path to galactic influence. Sometimes, the greatest power came from the simple willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. And in the space around Earth, where the greatest fleet in galactic history had been destroyed in 14 minutes, memorial monuments drifted silently as reminders of what happened when predators mistook guardians for prey. The galaxy had learned to coexist under the protection of a species that asked for nothing more than the right to live in peace, and in return had given them something they had never known: hope for a future without fear.